Hey everybody, welcome back to 10 to Life. My name is Elise, and I am here to break down another true crime case for you. Now, sorry, this pillow is just like getting into my back a little bit. I'm really tired today. I hope you guys are having a good day. I am absolutely exhausted, which you can tell because I didn't flat iron or blow dry my hair. I don't know if I'm growing my hair back out. I don't know if I'm cutting it short. All I know is that I was way too tired to do it today. Ow, that kind of hurt my jaw. But I hope you guys are awake, having a good day. All I know is that I wanted to jump on here and I wanted to talk with you about this case because holy crap, it is a wild one. Did you guys just hear my stomach? Sorry, that made like a really weird noise. I guess I need to eat after I talk to you about this. Anyways, I hope you guys are all having a good day. Sorry for this long-winded, weird intro, but I wanted to jump on here because there is a case, like I said, that I really want to talk with you about. I think we can all agree that most cases we discuss on this channel follow a very similar pattern, right? Someone is killed or goes missing, and then the police are notified. However, today's case is actually the exact opposite. A woman named Amy is randomly visited by the FBI, who inform her that they have discovered a murder-for-hire plot against her on the dark web. Someone wants her dead and has gone to great lengths to try to make it happen. Now, Amy, who is considered an extremely kind and likable person, has no idea who would want her dead. And when Amy is then later found dead in her home, an investigation leads to a very unlikely and unsuspected killer. So I want to hear your thoughts about this one as we go, so make sure to light up the comment section as we're going through because it is a wild one. So let's get into it. All right, guys, so I decided that I want to rebrand myself for 2024. I want to be kind of like a simple kind of girly. Like I want a staple wardrobe, and then I just want to really switch up my fragrance based on how I feel that day, whatever my mood is. And luckily, the service that is helping me do that is also today's sponsor, which is Scentbird. Now, Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service with tons of different perfumes and clones available, like hundreds, guys. They let you choose a new designer fragrance to try every single month, too, for just $17. And it isn't just some like random fragrances that they send you and then they hope that you like them. You get to pick what you want to receive every single month. So there are no surprises. And they have luxury designer brands like Prada and Gucci, but they also have the classics like Clinique, Juicy Couture, things like that. And you can choose whichever ones you want. Now here's the game changer for me. With each fragrance, and I'm actually going to show you because I have it here, you get a 30-day supply. So you can try it out before committing to one of those full-size bottles that can cost over $150, sometimes $300, $500. I mean, you know how expensive it gets. So it totally takes the risk out of it if you either aren't vibing with the scent or you just kind of want to continuously change up your scent based on your mood like me. You can get these 30-day supplies and just constantly switch it up. Anyways, I want to talk with you guys about what I picked this month, and let me just show you. This is the bottle, and it comes in like this sleek little case. It's so cute. So I picked Tommy Bahama St. Bart's Seascape, which smells like an expensive beach vacation. It has these notes of orange, lemon. It's so good. Also, Malot's Skin Bouquet, which literally smells just like it sounds like a bouquet, and it has hints of jasmine and violet. And then also, which is this one, which is the one I'm spraying all over my bod today, is Coriander by DS and Durga. And it's a little bit more robust, which I hate that word, but it's the best way to describe it. And it has these notes of like musk and sage. It just feels really nice, kind of perfect for a date night or perfect for a day that you're recording in the studio like moi. But even better, if you guys use my coupon code AnnieElise55 off, you will get 55% off of this, making it just a little over $7 for your first month. The value is insane here. Scentbird is available in the USA and Canada, so snag this deal while it lasts, grab all of your fragrances, start living your best smelling life, and remember, use my code AnnieElise55 off for 55% off. I mean, literally $7 a month. You can't beat it. It smells so good. Amy Allwine was born in December 1972 and grew up in Minnesota. She was the middle child in between an older sister and a younger brother, and they grew up in a very strict and religious household. Her family were Christian fundamentalists and were members of the Worldwide Church of God. The basis of their religion is that they are children of God, and once they die, they will be resurrected, and they will essentially rule the world alongside God. The religion follows the Jewish calendar and has pretty strict rules like what you can eat, how much money you should give to the church, how to act appropriately with the opposite gender, things like that. They also don't celebrate holidays like Christmas because they consider them pagan, but they do have their own celebrations, like a big festival held in different locations around the world during the fall. Now, because of their religious beliefs, Amy and her siblings weren't allowed to do any extracurricular activities outside of the church. While they attended public school, they weren't allowed to participate in any school activities or have any friends at school. They would go to school and then immediately come home. Their life basically revolved around the church. Amy did, though, have many friends at the church as a teenager. She was the head cheerleader for the church's basketball team as well, and so because of this, she loved to get together with her friends at the church and develop these dance routines for the cheer squad. Amy also had a love for animals that would continue into her adult life, and she was always known for just having a smile on her face, being kind, loving, and an overall wholesome person. So in the early 90s, Amy moved from Minnesota to Big Sandy, Texas, to attend college at Ambassador College, which is a 4-year liberal arts university run by the Worldwide Church of God. And the college's motto is actually recapturing true values. And they say that they prepare young adults for life and service in the church. Now, initially, Amy was pretty alone at school and didn't have many friends, but she met a guy named Stephen Allwine, and her school life became a lot less lonely. Stephen was from Spokane, Washington, and luckily for him, many of his friends from his hometown church group also attended Ambassador College. So Stephen had a pretty large and solid group of friends that Amy was quickly welcomed into. And Stephen himself, he was kind of more on the nerdy side. He was a little nerdy, loved computer science, loved just being on the computer, but he loved Amy's warm and optimistic personality. It was kind of like the perfect pairing, a good balance between the two of them. So the two of them, of course, became a couple, and because they both loved to dance, they loved being one another's dance partners at different various college functions. Remember, all with the church undertone there. So while they were still in college, the Worldwide Church of God ended up splitting, and then another group formed called the United Church of God. The two churches differed in beliefs, but the United Church put a lot of emphasis on spreading their teachings around the world, using things like mission trips, books, and especially the internet. So for these reasons, Amy and Stephen chose to join the United Church of God. Now, in the summer of 1996, Amy and Stephen ended up getting married, and then they moved back to St. Paul, Minnesota to be closer to Amy's family. Like I said, Stephen was kind of like a computer science guy, a little bit on the nerdy side, but he had a huge interest in computer science and ended up working in IT. As I mentioned, Amy had always loved being around animals, and she was really talented at training them too, so she actually began teaching at a local dog training facility. Eventually, the couple moved into a small home 10 miles south of St. Paul in a suburb called Cottage Grove. Now, Cottage Grove was a lot quieter than the city and also much more affordable. Their home sat on 28 acres of land, and it also had an old barn on it, which Amy was able to renovate and then turn into a dog training facility. So she rented out the space to other dog trainers, but she also opened her own dog training business there called Active Dog Sports Training. So the couple was really happy, and they lived a fairly simple life. Their home was small, just a basic double-wide trailer, but Stephen installed multiple solar panels on the roof, and he was also very, very proud of them. He would often brag about them to neighbors, just being excited about how much money they saved on their electricity bill, trying to make the home cost-friendly, cost-beneficial, really cozy and comfy, just good vibes, a good small home. And even though their home was small and simple, the views from their property were absolutely incredible. They lived on this really wide expanse of prairie land that offered these breathtaking views of the sunset and the sunrise. So the couple enjoyed spending a lot of time outside, and the area that they lived in was really popular actually for people to go on walks as the sun was going down. And this much open space was honestly perfect for Amy's business, and she was becoming pretty successful. She was known for her talent in training agility and nose work, which is training dogs to search for certain smells. So she actually started competing in dog competitions all across the country. Amy competed with both of her dogs, which were a Newfoundland and an Australian Shepherd, but she also competed with the other dogs that she worked with through her business. She really made a name for herself, and many people respected her because of how talented she was. Her business was clean and she was professional, but more importantly, everybody noted how kind Amy was. Her extremely positive personality was also reflective in how she trained her dogs because she was patient, she would never yell at the dogs, she would never punish the dogs that she was working with. It was just kind of like the perfect career path for her. So like Amy, Stephen ended up wanting to work from the comfort of their own home as well. And their home had a basement, so Stephen was able to equip this up to the nines with multiple computers and various other electronic devices. He was then able to use the space as a home office and ended up working for himself as a freelance IT tech. He would often do IT work also for call centers, insurance companies, and coworkers knew that he was the go-to guy if they ever had a particularly difficult problem. So both Amy and Stephen kept really busy with work, but they also made sure to make time for each other and for their family. They had a pretty much set routine that they did week to week. On Fridays, the couple would go over to Amy's parents' house for dinner, and Amy would bring over dessert because she loved to bake, and her favorite thing to bake was strawberry pie. Then on Saturdays, the couple would take their day of rest, which was common for their religion, and they actually took this so seriously that Amy would never even compete in a training competition that was landing on a Saturday. Never. They would always have this as the day of rest. Then on Sundays, the couple would often spend the majority of the days at the church, of course. Stephen also ended up posting sermons for the church online. He provided marriage counseling for church members, and he prayed over people who were sick. Then, eventually in 2006, Stephen became an official church deacon, while Amy became a deaconess. And in the United Church of God, a deacon or a deaconess is someone who assists with various church functions. In addition to all of their church activities, Amy and Stephen would spend any spare time that they had running their own website, which was allwine.net, where they would post updates about their family as well as dancing videos, because remember, they both loved to dance and did this in college, and they still love to dance. And so they posted videos about how to dance appropriately with a partner, as well as providing a list of church-acceptable dance songs. They also loved to travel and would often travel overseas for missionary work and different church events. So they would constantly blog about everything going on in their life. But it definitely had, that undertone and undercurrent of church-related activities and things like that. Because even with the dancing, it was how to dance appropriately with a partner, what kind of music to dance to, what's okay. It just had very much this religious lens, I guess you could say. Now, unfortunately, Amy wasn't able to have children. So in 2007, Amy and Stephen ended up adopting a son when he was just 2 days old, and they named him Joe, little baby Joe. The adoption was open, so the Allwines kept in contact with the birth mother. And the birth mother said that she chose Amy and Stephen to be the adoptive parents because she had never seen a couple that was so loving, so affectionate. She also felt bad that Amy couldn't have kids of her own and loved the fact that they enjoyed dogs so much. They just really seemed like a kind and trustworthy couple. So everything is going great for this couple. They're building their family, they're making their house a home, they're working from home, their careers are thriving, everything's great. And then fast forward about 10 years. And on May 31st, 2016, the Allwines had some very unexpected visitors at their home. Amy was gone for the day, and Stephen was working in the basement as usual. He heard a knock on the door, and when he went to answer it, 2 law enforcement officers were on their doorstep, asking for Amy. One of the men was a local police officer named Terry Raymond, and the other was FBI agent Asher Silkey. So Stephen told the men that Amy wasn't home, so they asked Stephen to tell her that she needed to come to the police station as soon as she possibly could. They said that they didn't believe that Amy was in any immediate danger, but they needed to speak with her right away. So Stephen told them that he would call Amy and let her know what was going on. So then the officers left. So later that evening, Stephen and Amy arrived at the Cottage Grove Police Department. Now, neither Stephen nor Amy knew what to expect when they arrived. As far as they knew, they hadn't done anything wrong. But Amy was brought into an interview room with Detective Raymond and Agent Silkey. She didn't know what was happening. She didn't know if she was in trouble for something and she didn't know about it. She wasn't sure what to make of it. But then the officers asked Amy if she knew of anyone who would want to bring harm to her or her family. Amy said no, she didn't know of anyone who would try to hurt her or who would want to hurt her or anybody close to her for that matter. So when Amy asked what the hell was going on, their answer completely shocked her. They had found proof that someone was actively trying to have Amy killed. Now let's rewind a little bit to when police first got this tip. This was all going down in May of 2016. Earlier that spring, the FBI had received a tip about a hitman site on the dark web called Bessa Mafia. Maybe it's Bisa Mafia, Bessa Mafia. Honestly, I don't know. And I tried to look up the right way to pronounce it, but there was nothing concrete online. And I'm not familiar with the dark web or the Bisa Mafia. So we're going to just call it Bessa Mafia. So anyways, they had received a tip about a hitman site on the dark web called Bessa Mafia. Now, if you don't know what the dark web is, it's a part of the internet that's dark. Duh, obviously. No, so it's a part of the internet that requires sometimes a specific software to access. The dark web is pretty hidden and not easily accessible by the average internet user. And people go to the dark web to buy drugs, weapons, view very gory, very inappropriate, very disgusting videos, watch videos of live torture. That's actually a thing. Buy and sell other people like trafficking, hire hitmen. I mean, you name it. If you sit back and think of the most disgusting thing in the world or the craziest movie you've ever seen or anything like that, and you're like, where would I ever even find something like that? Where would I ever even gain access to something like that? Pretty much likely that it's on the dark web somewhere. So Bessa Mafia was an extremely popular site that claimed to be linked to the Albanian mob, and it was a place for freelance hitmen to advertise their services. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I know all of you true crime besties do know this because if you're a true crime person and true crime enthusiast, you definitely know this, but I just gotta dot all my I's, cross all my T's. A hitman is someone who is hired to kill someone else. So the Bessa Mafia website was very, very professional looking, and at the very top of it, it read, hire a killer or a hacker. Then further down on the site, it read, if you want to kill someone or to beat the shit out of him, we are the right guys. So people would go on that site and post what kind of services they were looking for, and then other people would post what kind of services they provide. People could hire anyone from a drug dealer to a gang member to kill whoever they wanted. If you wanted then a more professional hitman to do your bidding, well, you had to pay a little bit more. Now, fortunately, the Bessa Mafia site was hacked in the spring of 2016, and the FBI, this sure is bugging me, and the FBI received a huge list of people that other dark web users had paid Bessa Mafia to kill. There were names of people from all over the world. Canada, the United States, Australia, Turkey, even more. So when the FBI received the list, they notified the local law enforcement for every person on that list. And Amy Allwine was listed as order number 30,312. And right with the order number was a picture of Amy during a Hawaiian vacation, which was attached to the order request. Now, if you've ever seen the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you might get where I'm going with this reference, but it really is like a movie. Imagine a secret underground of hitmen, and you get a file or you get a text message with an order number with just a picture of somebody saying this person must be killed by 8 p.m. or this is your mission. It's $5,000 to execute this. That's really what this looked like. It's really, really scary. So along with her Hawaiian vacation picture, there was a description of what she looked like too. It said that she was about 5 feet, 6 inches tall and approximately 200 pounds. And the person who had requested to have Amy killed was listed under the name Dog Day God.
The FBI had told the couple and Cottage Grove detectives it had received information that a murder for hire inquiry had been located on the dark web, with Amy Allwine as the intended target. The dark web is that untraceable part of the internet where anything goes, including a site like Bessa Mafia, which provides contract killings and claims to be part of an Albanian organized crime family. To establish themselves as legit, Bessa Mafia posted ominous videos of their hitmen torching cars. Then last May, Bessa Mafia was hacked. Their client emails posted for all to see, including the FBI. Agents spotting an email from a customer named Dog Day God, who wanted Amy Allwine of Minnesota dead.
Now, Dog Day God first contacted Bessa Mafia a few months earlier, on February 15th, 2016, because remember, they were talking to Amy in May, so this happened a few months earlier. His initial message to Bessa Mafia said that they wanted to hire their services, but that they weren't sure how to pay them anonymously, and wasn't sure how to pay them while also ensuring that they would get the service that they paid for. The owner of Bessa Mafia went by the name Yura, and Yura informed Dog Day God that he would hold the money until the job was done. Then, if the hitman didn't complete the job, he would give Dog Day God the money back, kind of like an escrow office or where a security deposit would go, right? So Yura also said that Bitcoin was the preferred way to pay for things on the dark web because Bitcoin was basically anonymous. Yura provided Dog Day God with a list of Bitcoin traders who were trustworthy and reliable and would also keep their information anonymous. Now, Bitcoin I know is really confusing, at least for me it is, so let me explain for a second. Bitcoin works by sending money to someone's Bitcoin address. A Bitcoin address is just a string of 34 numbers. The transactions are public, but they never display the account owner's name, only their numbered address. So if Dog Day God kept that address private, then no one would know who the account owner is. But Dog Day God was also worried that transferring a large sum of money from their bank to Bitcoin would look suspicious. But Yura said that if somebody asked, Dog Day God could just say that they were making an investment or that they had started online gambling, an excuse for why there would be such a large sum of money transferred. So Dog Day God then informed Yura that they wanted Amy Allwine to be killed. And they stated that it needed to look like an accident, and that Yura needed to ensure that this crime wouldn't be traced back to Dog Day God. So Dog Day God told Yura that Amy would be leaving on March 19th and going to Moline, Illinois for a dog competition. Dog Day God provided Yura with a very detailed itinerary of Amy's weekend and told them that she would be driving a dark green Toyota Sienna minivan. Yura said that the starting price would be $5,000 and that a gang member wearing a turtleneck would kill Amy using a handgun. And if Dog Day God really wanted it to look like an accident, he would need to pay Yura an additional $4,000. So after some back and forth, because apparently that's what you do when you hire a hitman, you haggle, which seems so beyond reckless and dumb, but after some back and forth, the two of them finally agreed that for the cheap price of $6,000, a gang member would kill Amy, and the gang member would do this by hitting her with his car. So Dog Day God specifically asked for the hitman to make sure that he hit the driver's side of the car to ensure that Amy would actually die. Dog Day God gave more details about Amy's trip as well, and Yura advised Dog Day God to surround themselves with people that day, be in public, be in places with cameras, and to just do something that would provide them with a rock-solid alibi. Yura then gave Dog Day God the Bitcoin address to send the money to, and Dog Day God sent over the $6,000, all for this hit on Amy. So on March 20th, Dog Day God asked Yura if the job was finished, but Yura said that the hitman wasn't able to complete the job. He had been following Amy, but never actually had a chance to hit her with the vehicle. Now, because of this, Dog Day God was upset, and sensing their frustration, Yura offered another option. He said that for an additional $6,000, he could have a sniper hide out and shoot Amy. Now, according to Yura, a sniper was much more reliable than hitting Amy with a car. But Dog Day God said that they didn't have the money right now, that they would have to transfer more money from their bank to Bitcoin. So then, like a greedy little slime ball, the next day, Yura offered Dog Day God another option. Yura asked Dog Day God if Amy was their wife, and then followed this question up by stating that they could complete the job in Amy's hometown. Now, Dog Day God said that Amy wasn't their wife, but asked Yura if Yura could have Amy killed at her home and then burn her home down. Dog Day God said that Amy was going to be home the following Thursday on March 24th from 9 a.m. to noon. So Yura said that they could do this, but it would be an extra $10,000. Dog Day God agreed and gave Yura Amy's home address. So the next day, Dog Day God transferred the Bitcoin to Yura and then gave him more details of Amy's schedule. Dog Day God requested that Bessa Mafia let them know what time the hitman was going to do the job so that they could make sure that they were out and about, having that good alibi, seen by friends, seen on cameras, doing all of the things. And Dog Day God also informed Yura that Amy's husband had a large tractor, and because of this, probably had a lot of gas cans in the garage which could be used to burn the house down. So Thursday came, but Thursday came and went, and Amy was still alive. So Dog Day God was starting to get really frustrated now. Was this all a ruse? Was this even real? Was this all fake news? But Yura said that the hitman had trouble finding Amy's house, but that they could try to do it another time. But Dog Day God said that they were becoming frustrated at this point because they hated Amy and they wanted her gone. The longer that she was alive, the longer that Dog Day God had to pretend to be Amy's friend. So Dog Day God said that they couldn't keep asking Amy about her schedule because it would start to look suspicious. So Yura and Dog Day God agreed that the hitman would try again on Monday. But Monday came and went, and Amy was still alive. So this time, Yura said that the hitman had been pulled over by the police. The hitman was driving a stolen car, and when the police realized this, they arrested him and then brought him in for questioning. Now, Dog Day God was getting furious and said, and I quote, "This bitch has torn my family apart by sleeping with my husband." Then they went on to explain that her husband left her and that Amy was stealing clients from her business. Dog Day God just wanted Amy dead and said that if she wasn't dead by May 1st, then she wanted all of her money back. She was over it. The plan was going to be finished. She said she couldn't get her hopes up again just for the plans to fall through, and she didn't care how they did it or when they did it. She just wanted Amy gone. So Dog Day God gave Yura more information about an upcoming trip of Amy's. This time, she was going to be in Atlanta on the weekend of April 7th. Dog Day God didn't know any of the details, but said that the hitman could kill her there. She also said that she drove past Amy's house the previous day, and the garage door was open, and sitting on the garage floor were 3 large 5-gallon gas cans and a large propane tank, saying that the hitman could still kill Amy at her home and then burn her house down. Either way, Dog Day God didn't care how Amy was killed. She just wanted Amy gone and out of her life, and the only way that she could apparently move on was if Amy was dead. But time went on, and Amy still wasn't dead. And Yura kept coming up with various excuses as to why they couldn't complete the hit. But Dog Day God was not having it. So on May 20th, Dog Day God demanded a full refund and said that Bessa Mafia was absolutely terrible, that they couldn't even complete a basic job. Dog Day God said that they were going to save up to buy one of their professional hitmen, but that it would take a while for them to get the money. So Yura came back and said that the Bessa Mafia site was hacked, and that if Dog Day God didn't send them $10,000, Bessa would release their information to the FBI. So over the course of about a dozen days, Dog Day God and Yura sent around 140 messages back and forth to each other, all about how they were going to kill Amy. So police shared these messages with Amy and Steven, who both were literally just sitting there in complete shock with their jaw on the floor. Like, was this real life? Is this a movie? Am I getting punked? Where's Ashton? Sorry if that's a reference and you're too young to understand what I'm talking about, but they could not believe that someone went to such great lengths to try and have Amy killed. She was your average, everyday suburban housewife. She loved her family, church, animals, and she spent her spare time baking. Who would want her killed? She wasn't someone who had made any enemies. Everybody liked Amy. And with her constant positivity and kindness, honestly, how could you not? She had a good relationship with her husband. She had solid friendships and a great support group at church. So the detectives kept asking Amy, who would want to do this to you? But she couldn't think of anybody, truly. She was trying to rack her brain. She couldn't think of anyone. And she didn't even like thinking that someone close to her thought this way about her. It was very, very unsettling, to say the least. Also, Amy said she had never cheated on Steven. Cheating is generally frowned upon by everyone, but it was especially condemned by their church. The United Church of God was a very, very conservative religion. When you were married to someone, you were agreeing to be with them for life. Divorce was not an option. It was not allowed, and adultery was considered a very serious sin. So this made the identity of Dog Day God even more confusing. They said that Amy had slept with their husband, but if that really wasn't true, then why would Dog Day God say all of that? So the FBI speculated that Dog Day God might be someone who would inherit Amy's business if she died. And since Stephen had no interest in dogs and no interest in inheriting Amy's business, they asked Amy if there was anyone else in her life, specifically from dog training, who would benefit financially if Amy died. But Amy still couldn't think of anyone. The only person they thought could have anything to do with this was one of Amy's co-workers named Kristen. Kristen and Amy had worked together for a really long time, and Kristen played a big role in creating and maintaining an online presence for Amy's business. Kristen's kids also often played with Amy and Stephen's son, Joe, and Kristen would watch the family's dogs if they ever were away out of town. But suspecting Kristen was a pretty big stretch. The police interviewed her soon after speaking with Amy, but the interview went nowhere, and Kristen didn't provide any helpful information. So detectives interviewed the rest of Amy's colleagues, and they had similar results. After the interviews with her coworkers, Amy gave the police a list of over 100 people she knew who might know intimate details about her life, and it included family members, church friends, her best friend Sharon, and other people from different parts of her life. Amy felt guilty, though, even giving this list to the investigators because she knew her friends and family would never do this. She didn't even like suspecting them. So the police sifted through the list of names that Amy provided, and they researched everyone who was particularly close to Amy. From Amy's list, they picked the people who knew the most about her, and then asked them to come to the police station for interviews. Investigators also asked to search their phones to see if there was any link to Dog Day God. But the interviews with Amy's friends had the same result as the interviews with her coworkers. Nothing helpful at all. And every person they interviewed said that Amy would never cheat on Stephen and would never have an affair. So what the heck was going on here? Was this a case of mistaken identity? Did they have the wrong Amy? So even though they didn't have any concrete information, the police didn't think that Amy was in any immediate danger because Bessa Mafia was actually a complete fake website, which, if you can't imagine that already, I mean, obviously, Yura was a con man. He didn't have ties to the mob or any hitmen for hire, and he would take the money that people sent him and then pocket it himself and make all of the excuses about why the hit didn't happen, but knowing that people would never go to the police because then they would get in trouble for trying to hire a hit, right? Kind of sounds like a good scheme.
Bessa Mafia was an elaborate hoax.
We have zero information at this point that any of the hits that were ordered on that website were actually carried out. In fact, there's pretty good evidence, I think, that it was just a scam to scam people out of Bitcoin.
So long, farewell, I'll be to say adieu.
Go to the dark website today and you get a song from The Sound of Music and this message: Bessa Mafia has closed for business. No one was ever beaten up or killed.
So even though nothing was going to materialize, it still meant that there was someone out there that wanted Amy to die, even if the person they hired to kill her was a fake con hitman. So the detectives didn't think that Dog Day God would kill Amy themselves, but still suggested that Amy and Stephen put extra security in their home just in case, because there was a maniac who wanted her dead apparently. So Stephen and Amy put up multiple cameras and multiple motion detectors all around the house. They could see every angle from the house, and they would be notified if anybody approached the house. However, the camera on the back porch was never turned on. This was the area where the dogs went in and out of the house, and Amy and Stephen, they didn't want to be notified every single time that the dogs went outside. That can get kind of annoying if you're getting an alert every time there's motion and the dogs are constantly in and out. And they felt like the other cameras would be more than enough. And even though the back camera wasn't on, hopefully it could serve as a deterrent to keep people away. So over the next couple of weeks, Amy and Stephen's life kind of went on as normal. They didn't notice anything suspicious, and they didn't really tell anyone what had happened. The only people who knew what was going on were the people that the police interviewed. But Amy and Stephen played the whole thing off and told them it was actually not that big of a deal and that they weren't worried. But then one day in June, Amy called the police because she noticed a strange blue van that was parked outside of her house. The police came to the house immediately, but the person in the van was just somebody working in the area, and they were just taking a quick nap on their break. But this was enough to spook them. So after this, Stephen decided to buy a 9mm handgun and also received a concealed carry permit. Amy and Stephen would go on dates to the shooting range, they would practice using the gun, they wanted to feel safe, and it was kept in a case on Amy's side of the bed, and Stephen kept a shotgun on his side of the bed. Even though Stephen had a concealed carry permit, he never actually carried the gun with him, though. The only time he did bring the gun with him was actually one time when Kristen had asked him to come over to her house to help with the Wi-Fi, because Stephen still didn't trust Kristen, and he brought the gun just in case. So weeks went by, and nothing happened. Amy tried to resume her normal life, training the dogs, traveling to dog competitions. She was spending time with her family and also helping Joe build Legos on the kitchen table. And during this time, Amy started developing a really close friendship with the FBI agent, Detective Asher Silkey. They would talk on the phone, and Amy would tell him how she was feeling, and she would update him on what was going on. And they ended up meeting in person multiple times, and Stephen accompanied Amy to a couple of these meetings. But Amy liked having someone to talk to about all of this because she continued to keep most of it to herself, so it was nice to have someone to open up to. She would occasionally open up to her best friend Sharon, but she didn't tell anybody else. She didn't even tell her own parents. And from the outside looking in, you couldn't even tell that anything was wrong. Amy maintained that happy-go-lucky attitude that she always had. But Amy was human, and there were a few times that she would break down to those close to her. She still could not get over the fact that someone hated her so much that they thought that the world would be better without her. But everything changed on July 31st, 2016. Amy called Agent Silkey in a complete panic, exclaiming that she received an extremely upsetting email from someone by the name of Jane. And in this email, Jane said, "Amy, your family is in danger. On Sunday, you received an email with a solution to this problem and you have done nothing about it. You're selfish that you are putting your family's life at risk. If you didn't see the email, check your junk mail soon." So Amy checked her junk mail, and sure enough, there was a message from this Jane person, and Amy received it on that Sunday. Now, part of the messages said, "Amy, I still blame you for my life falling apart. I don't know how a fat bitch like you got to my husband, but because of you, he left, and my life has become shit. I'm sending you this email because it looks like you already know about me. I see you've put up a security system now and are being informed by people on the internet that police were snooping around my earlier emails. I've been assured the emails are untraceable and that they won't find me, but I cannot attack you directly with them watching. Here's what's going to happen since I cannot get to you. I will go after everything else that you love. I know about your son, your husband, and your business. And thanks to the internet, I see you have a father and mother in Woodbury, a brother in St. Paul, and a sister in Pennsylvania. I've been busy researching topics on the internet and have found that if you inject water into a car brake line, you will cause them to fail. What would happen if the brakes on your husband's truck failed when he was hauling a heavy load? I've also found how to blow up a gas meter and make it seem like an accident. I know that the meter on your house and business is on the east side, and the meter on your parents' house is on the south side. I'm still watching you and your family. While I did not see your son this week, I saw last Friday that he was wearing a bright pink shirt. I see he moved into the RV. Here's how you can save your family. Commit suicide. If you do not, you will slowly see things being taken away from you, and each time you will know you could have stopped it, which will eat you apart from the inside. By the time I am done, you will want to end it anyway. So why not do it now and save them? I think it's an easy choice. 1 life to save 6 lives. Your family does not need you, but you can save them. Do not tell anyone about this email or the deal is off and I will come after your family. Unless you're a heartless, selfless bitch, then I expect to see your obituary in the paper in the next couple of weeks. I mean, I don't know what I would do if I ever received an email like that. That is really freaking scary. So of course, Detective Silkey rushed to Amy's house right after finding out about this, and Amy confirmed that a lot of the information in the email was true, except for her sister's address. So Detective Asher Silkey also noted that the email was sent from a third-party service that allows people to send emails anonymously. He then asked Stephen if he could search the family electronics, and Stephen said yes. So the FBI took the computers for a few days, but they didn't find anything important or useful. Investigators hoped, though, that this email was proof that Dog Day God, or Jane, was de-escalating the situation. They went from trying to hire someone to kill Amy to trying to convince her to kill herself. And detectives weren't worried about Amy killing herself. It was strictly against her religion, and Amy also would never think to do anything like that. Now, even though the situation seemed to be getting a little bit better, Amy still felt nervous. So she decided to enroll in the Cottage Grove Citizens Police Academy because she wanted to learn more about the police department, about what they did and how everything worked within it. She wanted to get to know them better, too, so that she could be a better support system to them as a citizen. So she took classes with Sergeant Gwen Martin, and Gwen noted how excited and interested Amy was in everything. At the end of her class, she also got to participate in a ride-along, which is when a civilian gets to ride along with a police officer during one of their shifts. And Amy specifically asked to be paired with somebody from the K-9 unit, and they got along great. During the ride, they talked about the dog training and the nose work that Amy had done, and Amy had such a good time that she said that she would probably take the class again in the future. So her life continued, and nothing strange or scary happened. The Citizens Police Academy made her feel more confident, but Amy still felt paranoid from time to time, which I think is to be expected. She would worry that Dog Day God was watching her, and was someone that she worked with, or was someone attending her dog training classes. She also had suffered from migraines all of her life, but they were becoming worse and worse now. So she really relied on support from her best friend, her sister, and the church. Then, about 6 months later, after initially being notified of this threat, Amy and her family traveled to Germany for the annual United Church of God Fall Festival. And people who saw Amy at the festival said that she was the most relaxed that they had seen her in a really long time, probably because she was so far away and felt like any risk was probably non-existent at that point, as long as she was there. After returning home on November 12th, Amy attended church with Joe and Stephen as they did every week. Now, the sermon that day focused on the sin of adultery. They then enjoyed a normal day at home. The next day on Sunday, Stephen woke up early and secluded himself to his office in the basement. Amy woke up and decided to put some leftover pumpkin in the slow cooker that they could enjoy for dinner, and around noon, Stephen joined Amy and Joe in the kitchen for lunch. But Amy started to feel really dizzy, and she decided to go and lay down. A little while later, Amy's father, Charles, showed up to help install a new dog door. But Charles never went and talked to Amy because he knew that she wasn't feeling well, and he wanted to just let her rest. He eventually left, but almost as soon as he did, Stephen called him and asked him to come get Joe. Amy still wasn't feeling well, and had actually started to feel worse at this point. She wanted to go to the hospital because she knew something wasn't right. So Charles turned around and he picked up Joe, who was waiting right outside for his grandpa. When Stephen went back inside, Amy looked way worse. She seemed extremely distraught, said that her mouth was really dry, and said that she was very dizzy as well. So Stephen started Googling her symptoms, and he found that they were consistent with heart issues. So he insisted that they go to the hospital right away. But now Amy had apparently changed her mind. She didn't want to go anymore, so she went back to her bed to lie down. Amy fell asleep, and Stephen would periodically check in on her. But around 4:30, people started arriving at the house for dog training classes that started at 4:45. But Amy still wasn't feeling well, so another trainer led the class. So then around 5 p.m. while she was still sleeping, Stephen left the house to go get Joe from his grandparents' house. Stephen talked to her dad Charles on the phone and quickly updated him about Amy. He also quickly stopped to get gas before picking up Joe and then heading to the restaurant Culver's, which this was the father-son Sunday ritual. Eat chicken tenders, grilled cheese, while Amy would teach her evening classes. So when they got home, Stephen stayed outside and unloaded some things from the car. Joe, though, ran inside and went to the bedroom to see his mom, see how she was doing. But he saw that she was lying in a really weird position on the floor. So he ran to his dad and asked why is mom lying on the floor. So Stephen ran inside to the bedroom where he saw Amy, and she was lying on the floor with a pool of blood around her head, and there was a 9mm handgun at her side. So Stephen frantically called 911 and told the operator, "I think my wife shot herself. There's blood all over." And their son Joe could be heard crying in the background. The operator then asked Stephen where Amy shot herself, but Stephen said he didn't know. So he goes to check on Amy after the operator told him to, and said that Amy isn't breathing. And Joe can be heard in the background the entire time. And at one point he asks Stephen, "Are you gonna get remarried?" And Stephen's reaction? Stephen chuckles before saying, "I don't know, bud." I don't know, kind of weird, right? So the police soon arrived, and among them was Sergeant Gwen Martin, Amy's teacher from the Citizens Police Academy. And Gwen was shocked to find out that Amy had died. Now, Amy had also never told anybody at the academy what had happened to her. When the officers arrived, Stephen and Joe were waiting in the garage. They found Amy on the bedroom floor. Her arms were splayed out, and the 9mm gun was at her side. Her shirt had been slightly pulled up, and her pants were unbuttoned. Well, after seeing the crime scene, Gwen called Detective Randy McAllister, and she said that he needed to come immediately. But Detective McAllister was confused as to why Gwen would call him, because suicides are generally a closed and shut case. They don't ever need a detective. So Gwen tried explaining to him why he needed to come over, but she was too upset to explain it in a clear way. So she handed the phone to her partner, who told Randy that this was the woman who was threatened on the internet, and that something about the whole thing seemed off. As soon as Detective McAllister arrived, he started looking for things that seemed weird or out of place. And the first thing he noticed was how the house smelled, like pumpkin. He couldn't imagine that a woman who had started preparing dinner for the night would then decide to go and kill themselves. It didn't make any sense. Outside of the bedroom door, Detective McAllister also noted that the floor felt weird, almost like there was a thin film from someone trying to clean the area. He also noticed how the entire house was covered in dog hair, except the area in front of the bedroom. There was a large pool of blood underneath Amy, but investigators also noticed a few drops of blood on her left. Now, this normally does not happen in suicides. The only way that the blood could have gotten there was if something was held up high and the blood dripped down. There were drops of blood running down the left side of Amy's face, even though she was facing straight up. So to investigators, this suggested that Amy had been lying on her side, but then was moved and placed facing upward. So during the chaos, Amy's parents arrived. Stephen had called them and said, "Amy's dead. She shot herself." And while they were there, Detective McAllister noted that Amy's parents claimed that she was right-handed, but the gun was on Amy's left side, which would mean that Amy had to shoot herself with her left hand, but that wouldn't make any sense if she was right-handed, right? So Detective McAllister wanted a second opinion about the situation, so he called the State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, who then sent an agent to the scene. The family's pastor, Brian Shore, also arrived at the Allwine home. Brian, Stephen, and Charles all expressed to the detectives how happy Amy was. I mean, yes, things had been stressful with everything that was going on, but for the most part, Amy was doing well. Plus, as Charles had mentioned, Amy's family was her entire world. She would never leave them like this. In general, he knew that Amy would never hurt herself either. Stephen told the officer similar things and also agreed to have his hands tested for gunshot residue. He also provided a sample of his DNA and Joe's DNA to detectives. So the next day, investigators started interviewing neighbors and the dog trainers who had been out back in that training facility the previous day. One neighbor told investigators that he saw the Allwine's chimney billowing smoke. And although it was November in Minnesota, it had been unusually warm, and nobody else in the neighborhood was burning a fire. So the neighbor noted this as odd, but didn't really think much else of it. The previous afternoon, several people had been in the dog training facility for a nose work class. There were 6 people in total, the teacher Barbara and 6 students. The class was from 4:45 to 5:45. Toward the end of the class, they said that they all heard the sound of screeching and skidding tires outside of the building. It really startled them all, and they thought it was weird, but they didn't go outside to check anything. Then, by 6 p.m., everyone was gone, and another neighbor also said that they heard that screeching noise. Several other investigators continued to search inside the house. Detective McAllister really wanted to investigate that spot in front of the bedroom more, so he ended up using luminol to light up the area. And luminol can illuminate any area that was previously covered in blood. And when they started shining the light in front of the bedroom, the entire area was illuminated. They also found footprints going up and down the hallway, from the bedroom, going to the bathroom, going to the laundry room, and then back to the bedroom. So this solidified even more that Amy did not kill herself. Somebody else did. They cleaned the area, they moved her body, and then they tried to stage the area to make it look like Amy did it herself. 2 days after Amy died, Stephen was brought into the police station for questioning. He brought his pastor and attorney with him, but his pastor waited outside of the interrogation room. Now, Stephen was very quiet during the interview and only showed emotion when talking about church. He also couldn't explain the cleaned up spot outside of the bedroom, because as far as he knew, nobody in the house had been previously injured or seriously injured, so it wasn't making any sense. He also claimed that he first heard about the dark web when the FBI visited their home that spring, and he still firmly believed that Kristen had something to do with all of this. She was the only one who knew the details of Amy's trips, and often actually made the reservations for them. So he brought up that email from Jane and said that he really didn't think that Amy would actually kill herself. Again, it was against their religion. Anyone who killed themselves wouldn't get into heaven. Stephen also said that Amy wouldn't cheat on him. But then, good old religious Stephen shocked the police because he stated that he had been cheating on Amy all along. He claimed that he had heard about the website Ashley Madison from some of the couples that he had counseled at the church. And Ashley Madison is a famous website that is actually marketed toward married people who want to have affairs. Their slogan was famously, "Life is short, have an affair." And in 2015, the website was famously hacked and more than 60 gigabytes of company information was leaked to the public, including the private information of thousands of user profiles. So Stephen had gone on a date that ended terribly. He met the woman for dinner, and then when she left to go to the bathroom, she never returned. He then matched with a woman named Michelle Woodward. Michelle was a very slim woman in her 40s, and she suffered from anxiety and depression and claimed that she was in an open marriage. So Michelle and Stephen officially started seeing each other in October of 2015, about a year before this all went down. Stephen even accompanied Michelle to a doctor's appointment. They were getting pretty close. They would often meet for lunch, coffee, or dinner, and would meet up for sex anytime that Amy was out of town. They often met at Michelle's house, and Stephen would bring her with him when he had to travel for work. He would also complain about Amy to Michelle, saying that she never spent enough time with him or with Joe and spent more time with the dogs, but he never told Michelle about his affiliation with the church, but she found out about it after Googling him and finding some of his sermons online. Then, by February of 2016, the relationship was losing its spark. They would still meet up from time to time, but the relationship was way less serious. And at one point in September, Stephen confided in Michelle about everything that was actually happening with Amy and how scared they were. He told Michelle that someone was probably doing this to get Amy's business. And Michelle kind of replied very confused, saying, "Who would do this for a $50,000 business?" Stephen told the police that their fling had ended a while ago, but he still stayed in touch with Michelle because he felt bad for her. So he took on more of a counselor type role and helped Michelle because she was going through some difficult times. Stephen said that Michelle didn't have anything to do with this, though, and kept insisting that detectives look into Kristen again. But police had interviewed Kristen, and she had a solid alibi. She was actually in Oklahoma for a dog show when Amy was killed. So during this time, a different officer had decided to investigate the dark web. He wanted to see if he could find that user, Dog Day God, on any other dark websites. And he found the website Dream Market. And he discovered that Dog Day God had made 2 different posts on that site. The posts were made right after Dog Day God sent their last message to Yura from Bessa Mafia. Now, Dream was a site that was very similar to eBay, except that this website auctioned off drugs and other illegal items. So Dog Day God's first post said that they were looking for a drug dealer and a partner for a job. The person must also be willing to be paid in Bitcoin. The second post asked if they knew anyone who could find the drug scopolamine. Now, scopolamine is known as the zombie drug. It is generally used to treat motion sickness, but can be deadly if taken in large doses. It makes people very disoriented and easy to manipulate as well, and people don't remember what happens to them after taking too much of this drug. So Dog Day God's first post didn't receive any replies, but the second one did. One user replied saying that Dog Day God should stay away from the drug, that it's dangerous and that it'll kill someone. The second reply gave the name of someone who was a seller, though, but also said that they should avoid the drug and that it'll make people do anything, and then they'll forget all of it. So after seeing this, Detective McAllister asked the medical examiner to test Amy's blood for this drug, and the test came back positive, and it showed that Amy had 40 times the regular dosage for motion sickness. With this much of this drug in her system, Amy would feel very dizzy and disoriented, and would start to have hallucinations. So this started to explain why Amy wasn't feeling well that day. And her phone activity during this time also corroborated this, because at 1:48 on the day of her death, Amy visited the Wikipedia page for vertigo. Then a minute later, she typed DUY into Bing, then searched EYI, then DIYVWHH. Her internet searches were becoming more and more incoherent, and the whole thing started to look more and more like it was actually a homicide. The Cottage Grove Police Department was very, very small, and they rarely dealt with homicides and had never dealt with the dark web. So they decided to look back at old police reports to see if anyone else had made a report about Bitcoin or the dark web. And they found a report from March of 2016 that a man had filed a report and said that they had been defrauded in a Bitcoin transaction. He used Bitcoin to pay a man named Mark $6,000 for test prep materials, but the materials never came. Police noted that this was around that same time that Dog Day God initially paid Bessa Mafia $6,000. And get this, the investigators also discovered that the person who made this report was Stephen Allwine. So investigators had become more and more suspicious of Stephen, and the discovery of the police report was now the last straw. So they obtained a warrant to take 66 electronic devices from Stephen's home office. Now, since Stephen was in IT, he would likely know how to hide his internet activity. But during their search, they had discovered that Stephen frequently visited websites like lonelymilfs.com and naughtydates.com, and that he had also hired an escort several times in the past. His infidelity had been going on for years. But then they found something even more interesting on Stephen's MacBook Pro. During his very first conversation with the FBI back in May, Stephen said he had never heard of the dark web, right? Remember? But his MacBook Pro showed a search for the software Tor, months before he and Amy were ever even contacted by the FBI. And Tor is the software that is used to access the dark web. He also searched for the program Tails, which is a program that deletes any of your activity from the dark web. Specifically, he had searched how to download Tails on an Acer computer. Out of all 66 devices the police had confiscated from Stephen, not a single one was an Acer computer. So this computer was suspiciously missing, but the police were able to obtain it later. So police continued to search his computer, and they found some very strange consistencies between Stephen's internet searches and the messages that Dog Day God sent to Bessa Mafia. Specifically, Stephen's computer shows a search for Bitcoin just minutes after Dog Day God sent their first message to Bessa Mafia. Then, over the next few days, Stephen had various searches related to trading Bitcoin. Just minutes before Dog Day God told Bessa Mafia about Amy's competition in Illinois, Stephen also used his computer to search for canine nosewort competitions, reviewed the competition dates, and searched maps from Chicago to Moline, Illinois, the place where Amy was going. Stephen also uploaded a picture of Amy to their family website, and minutes later, Dog Day God sent that same picture to Bessa Mafia. Stephen had searches regarding Amy's life insurance policy, which he was also, big surprise, the beneficiary of. He also searched for the names and addresses of Amy's family members, and a few days later, Jane included this information in her email to Amy. And even though Stephen said that he had been emailing Mark about purchasing test prep materials, detectives didn't find any emails between the two of them. They did, though, discover one email from Mark and found that it was sent using a disposable email address, just like Jane's email. Stephen's personal computer was used to access this disposable email site around this time, too. So the police started to suspect that Stephen never met up with a man named Mark. They figured the report that he filed was fake and that Stephen did it to cover his tracks in case the police ever figured out that he had been dealing with Bitcoin. So kind of trying to be smart and think ahead, but also not being that smart when like the search histories and the Google histories and the dark web histories are talking. I mean, come on. But the absolute most damning evidence was something that they found on Stephen's iPhone. In his Notes app on his iPhone, Stephen typed a string of 34 random numbers and letters. And what do you know? The numbers and letters were deleted just a minute later. But the problem was his phone had already uploaded that note to his cloud. And the numbers and letters matched the Bitcoin address that Dog Day God had used to send money to Bessa Mafia. 20 seconds after typing the note on his phone, Dog Day God sent a message to Bessa Mafia with the address and asked to confirm that the address was correct. So the police started to notice the numerous inconsistencies in Stephen's story. On the day of Amy's death, Stephen said that he had been working all day, but the companies that he worked for said that Stephen never logged into their system after lunchtime. The cameras at the Allwine home also didn't show anyone suspicious arriving or leaving the house. So police contacted Stephen's mistress, Michelle, and she confirmed the affair with Stephen. She also mentioned that before one of their dates, Stephen said that he was meeting someone at a Wendy's to trade Bitcoin, but he ended up accidentally locking his keys in his trunk and he had to call roadside assistance, so he was running late for their date. Police confirmed with roadside assistance that Stephen contacted them, and they were also able to find the man that Stephen met at Wendy's, who also confirmed the story. Now, during this time, as all of this is going down, Stephen and Joe had actually moved in with Amy's parents. They felt like Stephen and Joe shouldn't have to live in the house that Amy died in, so they moved in with them. On January 20th, 2017, Stephen just finished dropping Joe off at school, and police ended up pulling him over for a routine traffic stop. Stephen, at that moment, was then arrested and charged with second-degree murder. His bail was set at $500,000, but he did pay it pretty quickly. He was then required to wear a GPS monitor and could only have supervised visits with Joe, who continued to stay at his grandparents' house while Stephen went back to his own home. So 2 weeks passed, and Stephen was arrested again because he had tried to contact Joe even though he was only supposed to have supervised contact with him. So his bail was raised to $600,000, but Stephen was still able to post bail. He was ordered not to talk to Joe at all. Now, Stephen's arrest shocked neighbors, family, and friends, and Amy's parents were absolutely disgusted that they had let Stephen stay with them, not knowing what he had done to Amy.
Very sweet lady. Whenever you talk to her, she's always upbeat. Everybody's pretty much shocked about it. They've always seemed like they got along very well, and we've never heard issues or anything like that. Pretty shocking.
Eventually, on March 24th, 2017, a little less than a year after when Amy was first made aware of these threats, a judge agreed to raise the charge to first-degree murder. Stephen was again arrested, and his bail was now set at $1 million. And this time, Stephen could not post bail, and he remained in custody until his trial in late January 2018. Stephen pled not guilty, and the prosecution argued that Stephen didn't want to just divorce Amy because it would have looked bad at church, that he might lose his status as a church elder, and that this was the motive for all of it. They said that he poisoned Amy with that drug earlier in the day to make her dizzy. Then he used the excuse that Amy needed to go to the hospital to get Charles to come and pick up Joe. Then once Joe was gone, Stephen had the house to himself, and he had the opportunity to commit his crime. He shot Amy while she was drugged, and then he moved her body to make it look like a suicide. He cleaned up the area in front of the bedroom using cloth that he then burned in the fireplace. Then he frantically left the house, screeching his tires as he did so. And when he went to pick up Joe, he got gas, ran errands, purposefully keeping those receipts all along the way in hopes of using them as an alibi. He purposefully stayed outside when he made his son run inside to find his dead mother. The prosecution brought many witnesses to the stand, including the Bitcoin trader that Stephen met at Wendy's, also the person who helped him from roadside assistance, and an escort that he paid $400 to have sex with. Detectives testified that gunshot residue had been found on his hands, and that no one entered the home after Stephen left to pick up Joe. But the defense said that the assailant could have entered through the back door where those cameras were turned off. The defense also used Stephen's good character as an argument for why he didn't commit this crime. They claimed that the real murderer planted the evidence on Stephen's computer. The defense didn't produce any evidence to suggest that Stephen didn't kill Amy. They hoped that by claiming he was a good guy, it would be enough, which seems like a real bonehead thing to do, but okay. So Stephen even spoke himself, and he said that he was preaching to people in prison and had even converted 3 atheists, and he hoped that this story would too paint him in a good light. But it didn't. The trial lasted about a week, and the jury deliberated for 8 hours, and Stephen was found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge said that Stephen, although a good actor, was a hypocrite. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Joe continued to live with his grandparents and still lives with them to this day. Amy's friends and family, they obviously deeply miss her and all of her positivity and things that she had to offer in life. Stephen eventually tried to appeal his conviction, arguing prosecutor misconduct and that he had a poor defense, but his request was denied. So Stephen sits in prison to this day, even though he maintains his innocence through all of it, but there is very little hope for him ever getting out. So this one was a roller coaster, guys, and at first it's like you think it's the husband, then you think maybe it is a jealous girlfriend or a crazed coworker, then you go back thinking it's the husband, but I get so hung up on the motive of it all because he didn't want to divorce her. Here's the thing, how is cheating on her in secret any less of a sin than divorcing her? Is it because you're doing it in secret and the church doesn't know about it, but a divorce would be public? So you go to such great lengths to do this, to get the poison, to make the fake emails from Jane, to hire the hitman on the dark web. I mean, it is making my head spin. Just file for a divorce. Just file for a divorce. Maybe that's going to be the next merch item. Just get a divorce. Because this always blows my mind why people think that it is a better option to commit murder than it is to just go through the temporary uncomfy situation of a divorce. Make it make sense. Thanks for tuning in with me today, guys. I know it was a long one. I know it had a lot of twists and turns, but I appreciate you sticking with me. So if you want to make sure you don't miss future episodes, make sure you take a quick second, subscribe to the channel so you will see when new episodes get posted. Thank you, Scentbird, for today's sponsorship, and remember, use my code Elise 55 off for 55% off. All right, guys, and until the next one, stay safe. Bye.